it's so hard. I need to get so fired. I need 1 million listeners on Spotify. Well, maybe you don't. Maybe you need to do it a different way. Into the Unknown episode, don't know what number. If you're new to Into the Unknown, it is a show all about doing the whole music thing, you know, trying to go for it, I guess. The thinking that keeps us down and the thinking that keeps us stoked. You know, it's a pretty simple show. A lot of folks, including myself, you get into it and you get so far and you're like, wow, this is really hard. I thought it was gonna be fun. Sun is really kicking up here. But yeah, CTA, if you like this channel, subscribe. If you don't like this channel, don't subscribe. Yeah, there's a lot of difficult stuff, especially when it comes to all of the admin and the marketing. There seems to be more of that than the actual music making if you don't have management and whatnot. Why would you have management if nobody knows you yet? The Bun is very, 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 very small music artist. I don't have no management. I don't have any administrative assistance. All of that stuff compounded with, you know, maybe you run into writer's block. Maybe, you know, there's technology that you still have to learn. Just many layers of complexity. I think the first thing to kind of clear the air with is the world doesn't care. You know, everyone outside of what you're doing doesn't care how hard it is. In a way, I think that the difficulty levels are kind of a filter. The people who are built to work through the difficulty, work with the difficulty, they rise to the surface, and the people who are not, they get filtered out. If it was easy, everyone would do it and nothing about any of it would be special. The audience, the potential audience, they don't really care how difficult it is. Maybe it's not for you. It sounds really unfair, but yeah, it's difficult and you need to face the difficulty of it and try and figure out a way to solve all the difficulties, I guess. And the people who do win, and the people who don't quit and do something else, become lawyers or whatever. You know, when it comes to fans, they're looking for people who triumph over the whole thing and deliver the goods. And it's unfortunately just the way it is. It's not, I didn't make it up. That's just how it is. Spilling coffee all over myself here. 10,000 hours, hear that term a lot. What is this whole 10,000 hours thing? I'm sure a lot of people already know what it is, but if you don't, it's this idea that once you spend 10,000 hours doing anything, you become quite proficient in the thing. Maybe not the greatest in the world, but proficient enough to do it professionally. And the idea is most people who are quite successful or quite well known have their 10,000 hours in on that given thing that they are expert in. So it gets easier the more you do it. Seems really logical. A lot of folks give up before there's any time in whatsoever. They're like, this is difficult and just quit. And I'm like, I guess it wasn't really for those people. If you're in a situation right now where it's like, oh man, this is so hard, well, it gets a little easier. There's nothing to guarantee that it's gonna hit, that you're gonna make it or whatever, nothing at all. Probably not the best idea to assume that you're gonna hit, that you know, a song that you write is actually gonna hit. It may never. You may gain a bunch of listeners, but you may never hit. If your thinking is, but I thought we need a hit to make it, to make any money. There's this guy named Kevin Kelly, and he wrote this article and popularized the idea 1,000 true fans. Summarized, the idea is it only takes 1,000 serious listeners, 1,000 true fans to have a reasonable career. It might take 100,000 listeners to have 1,000 true fans within that. So I can't tell you what the number is. I don't know if anyone can tell you what the number is. I think it's an organic thing. It might take 100,000, 200,000 listeners, general listeners, to find 1,000 true fans. I don't know how easy that part is. But the idea is you don't need a hit to make a career out of it. 1,000 true fans are going to invest in you enough to make a reasonable career out of whatever it is. In terms of the business model that you would apply to this 1,000 True Fans thing is up to you. You know, that's not what this episode's about. The only reason I'm sharing it is because it kind of shows a little glimmer of hope. If you're like, oh, it's so hard, I need to get so far, I need 1 million listeners on Spotify. Well, maybe you don't. Maybe you need to do it a different way. So a way to reduce difficulty is to focus on very small parts. So an example of that would be, instead of thinking about doing a 12-song record, and instead of thinking about finishing a song, just go riff by riff. You know, break it into very small parts. In terms of the admin and marketing, do one tiny bit at a time. And that can really help reduce the anxiety of the levels of difficulty. A lot of times the difficulty comes from things just appearing so big. Breaking things into very small chunks, the smallest possible chunks, and just doing one tiny chunk at a time in any given area, whether it be the songwriting or the admin or marketing or whatever. And that can very, very, very effectively reduce the stress involved in this whole music game. I'd like to hear about what your difficult part is. You know, it's hard to make an assumption on what that is. If it's the songwriting, if it's the marketing, if it's the admin, whatever the case may be. Would love to hear about what is your difficult part. It's different for everyone. Smash that subscription button if you're into that. And if you're not, don't. It's totally fine. But that's it for this one. And hope to see you in the next one.